Addiction and ADHD, wired for more. When you're a kid with undiagnosed ADHD, you don't know what's wrong. You just know the world feels too loud, too fast, and too hard to keep up with. So what do? You self-medicate, not with a prescription, but with survival, with sugar, chaos, risk, lying, anything that gives your brain the hit that it craves. It works for a while, but that dopamine rush becomes your drug of choice, and that's developed at an early age. Not because you wanted to rebel, but because you wanted to feel normal. You wanted to focus. You wanted to fit in, to just breathe without feeling like your mind is on fire. And that's the trap. And by the time someone finally says the letters ADHD, the damage is done. You're already chasing that fix. You're already wired for more, but not by choice, by adaptation. And that is how addiction starts for a lot of us. Not in rebellion, but in pain. And it started way before we even knew the word addiction. This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at Performance Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, ask for JB in Centerville and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Recovery Couch. You're listening to Wired for More, a 12-step deep dive into how ADHD and addiction are often intertwined. I'm your host, Brandon Couch, and my upcoming autobiography, Step 4, A Journey Through Addiction, will be released this fall. If you want to support the mission behind it, go to Kickstarter.com and search Help Publish Step 4. Any and all support is greatly and deeply appreciated. So before I ever even picked up a drug, I was already looking for something to take the edge off in my life. I had a lot of childhood pain, a lot of childhood trauma, and I didn't have any sort of language for this stuff at the time. I just knew that I felt different. I felt like things needed to be louder and faster. I needed to be distracted. I was always a little anxious and out of sync. And the adults in my life didn't know what to do with me most of the time, so I learned how to put on a mask at an early age. But on the inside, I always felt a little restless, emotionally flooded. Felt like I was constantly being told to calm down or focus or give more effort, try harder. So I started reaching for anything that would help me feel in control. At times it was food, other times it was video games or daydreaming, laying around, sneaking out, people pleasing. All of those were early forms of my self-medication, ways to escape the discomfort of living in a brain that never, ever felt settled. And when those things stopped working, I graduated to stronger numbing agents in hopes that I could escape the pain and the trauma from my parents' divorce and early childhood sexual trauma. So by the time I found drugs, it didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like relief. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. And unfortunately, for many of us, that's the trap. Most people think addiction starts with a bad decision. But for a lot of us, especially those of us with ADHD, it starts with years of unaddressed pain. We weren't trying to party. We were trying to survive while feeling a little sense of normalcy, which is why in recovery, it's not enough to just stop using. We have to go back and heal the wounded kid who was self-medicating before he even knew what that meant. And if that's your story also, if you've been carrying shame for the way you've coped with your pains and your traumas, or the things you reached for far too soon, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not crazy. You were doing the best you could with what you had. And because of that, you're just like me. And you, like me, were wired for more. This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by True Story Media. True Story Media is the creative team behind this podcast, and it helps people share their story with boldness, purpose, and impact. Whether through podcasts, public speaking, or books, your voice matters. To learn more, visit www.recoverycouch.com. Children with undiagnosed ADHD often turn to substances at an early age, not to party, but to cope. Stimulants like sugar, nicotine, or even early experimentation with alcohol or marijuana can feel like relief for these children. Relief from the constant overwhelm and internal restlessness. Another interesting fact is that ADHD and emotional dysregulation go hand in hand. Children with ADHD often experience intense frustration. They often experience shame or rejection sensitivity without any sort of healthy coping tools. Many of these children learn to self-soothe with external substances or risky behaviors. They're not trying to escape life. They're just trying to survive it with a sense of normalcy. And the third fact is that self-medicating can start with things that don't look dangerous, like video games, caffeine, or constant thrill seeking. But over a period of time, the brain builds a tolerance to these dopamine boosts, and riskier behaviors or even harder substances often follow. ADHD isn't just hyperactivity, it's a constant craving for regulation in a world that feels chaotic. If you like what you're hearing and you want to go deeper, please join the Recovery Couch Inner Circle on Patreon. It's our private space for deeper conversations, exclusive bonus episodes, and Q&A sessions with me and our upcoming guests. And speaking of guests, don't miss the next few weeks. We're excited to invite Michael Thompson, the author of The Heart of a Warrior. Fantastic book, wonderful person. So excited for that episode. And we just released the episode with Ryan Canaday. He offers so much insight and wisdom on what it takes to find recovery and to do so while understanding who you are. Ryan is the founder and lead pastor of Free, a powerful recovery community in Denver, Colorado. And one more thing, if you believe in this mission, then visit Kickstarter.com and search Help Publish Step 4. We're in the final stretch of bringing my story to print, and your support can change lives. I want to thank you for spending time with us today on the Recovery Couch. We may have started self-medicating at a young age, but today we get to do the hard and the holy work of healing. You, my friend, are not beyond repair. You are just like me, and you were wired for more. This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Whether you're buying or selling your home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today. ADHD and addiction, wired for more. In this episode of the Recovery Couch, we explored the often overlooked connection between ADHD and early self-medicating. For so many of us, that struggle didn't start with addiction. It started with an unregulated mind that we didn't understand. Whether it was sugar, caffeine, chaos, or substances, we chased relief long before we knew what we were chasing. We talked about how ADHD affects emotional regulation, impulse control, and the brain's dopamine reward system, and how untreated symptoms can lead children and teens to find their own way to feel normal. Often those ways are unhealthy. If this episode resonated with you in any way, you are not alone. This conversation is part of a much bigger mission. And if you want to go deeper into the mission, join the Recovery Couch Inner Circle on Patreon. It's where we build community, we share bonus content, and we keep the conversation going. And hey, stay tuned for details on True Story Media's first annual golf outing. It's going to be fun, filled with community, networking opportunities, and it is in the works as we speak, and we can't wait to share what's coming with that. Until the next time, we're so humbled to have you on the Recovery Couch. Remember to be kind to yourself, and you, my friend, are wired for more.